Steve Van Samson,
Curtis M. Lawson,
Paul Christian Glenn, Joshua Rex, Raz, Rob Smales. Hey everybody, happy Sunday. Welcome to the Clutch of Personalities. Your host Delphine here. Rob Smales is with us tonight.
Hello.
And we are going to be talking about some of his books. Okay, there we go. I reconnected. I said just before this to everybody that I was having some issues, and they decided to pop up. So
we need the obligatory candle after just for a moment. You know, the cheer.
Or is Raz spooling out of control for you too?
Am I?
Or is it just me?
Everything looks fine on my end.
Okay.
Hello. I'm hardwired these days, so.
Nice to see you. So tonight we have Rob, and you're from Salem.
Yes.
So born and raised, or just living there now?
Born and raised. Born in
Nice.
Salem Hospital, and just never got very far away from it.
That's someplace I'm going to be visiting at some point. I have I've met you and Curtis and Joshua from over at Weird House.
Yes.
And they're all up in the Providence, and then there's Steve Van Samson up there as well, who is super awesome. And so I'm hoping to get a chance to go out and get like a week or two on the East Coast to just go around and check out all of the cities and do fun stuff like that.
If you want to check out Salem, I'd not come in the month of October.
Yeah, I've heard that it turns very touristy around then.
It's very touristy all the time, but it gets packed and crazy, and you can't move you can't move around very much. You can't park very well. Parking goes through as of October 1st, parking goes through the roof. But that's the time everyone wants to come to see that. But if what you really want to do is just buzz around and see what the town is like, don't go.
Yeah. I know all the history, so it's kind of like I don't need. I was born on Halloween, so that's part of where I get my horror obsession from.
Okay.
But yeah. Okay, so I'm waiting for Raz, but I don't see him. I don't know if you do or not.
I do.
Okay. It's just something weird for me then.
I'm going to figure a figment of your imagination.
Awesome.
Rob, that's what
so guys, Rob is currently releasing
I don't think you can hear me.
And I have the picture for it, Laundrylegs. And I recommend you break out your Bushmills when you read this. It's a great horror book. Got it. And this is one of the things that y'all can win tonight. Not my copy, but I got my nice copy that is numbered and signed. I got the 41st copy of the book.
Nice.
So I wasn't in super early, but I did get there. Hey, Scars Hunters.
I have this rare opportunity to say whatever I want about Ellen. She's got no idea that I'm talking.
Nice to have all you guys here tonight. And there will also be some giveaways of some e-copies of it later as well. So make sure when you're watching, tell everybody to come and watch with you, and make sure you put some stuff in the comments. If you read Rob's books and go all the way through with them, you'll find that he does not like being asked the question, where do you get your ideas? Where did this one come from? So actually I just say that, but
I can't remember.
You actually have an answer kind of for that, don't you?
Fortune cookies.
In the
all
book
fortune
you wrote,
cookies.
It's
yeah. It's you mean what did I call it? The multiplier of the mind? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Some people talk about like idea A meets idea B, and they have a story. I don't think it's that simple. I think it's a little bit more organic. To me, it feels like somewhere in my head there's a pile of just cast off bits, just like a mulch pile or a compost heap that has everything in it. Stuff I think I've forgotten, stuff that I thought was cool, stuff that I thought was shitty. And eventually stuff winds up kind of getting together and sprouting from there. And I've got stuff sprouts from there all the time. And the hard part is picking out like what's a flower and should be tended and what's a weed and needs to be crushed and killed and destroyed. So I've got plenty of weeds I tried to help along the way and wound up having to kill them later. But hopefully this will be nice.
And quick question from What Does This Day Actually Hold? Where did you come up with the name Laundrylegs?
Okay. Trying to think of what I can say without giving anything away. Obviously, there's a centipede involved, and yes. From the cover that you just showed, it's a large one. I don't sleep very much, and I was doing laundry at about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and so I was in the basement at the going to the washing machine and looked up, and there was a not that big, but a large enough centipede to be startling because I didn't expect it to be there. On the wall, really close, and I kind of jumped back and said, "Hey there, Laundrylegs," just surprised and babbling at it because, like whistling past the graveyard, and it stuck. And eventually, it turned into a 150-page story.
And yes. It is very good. I must. You hit me in a lot of the feels on this one. I don't want to really give spoilers to people, but I want to give kind of the general feelings that I got behind it, if that's okay.
Okay. Should I say kind of elevator pitch what it's about?
Yeah. I'm going to take 1 second since I seem to be the one having issues and jump out and jump back in again.
Okay.
And so Raz got this.
I want to know, am I real?
I'll be right back. Something's wrong with my settings. So.
Okay.
You can hear and see me, Rob, right?
I can.
Okay. Can anyone at home hear and see me? Because I'm having questions. I'm having an existential crisis on whether I'm real or not. Because I may just be a figment of Dell's imagination that everyone else can see now. Maybe I've been fake all along. That's like my whole life,
I don't know. But if it's Dell's hallucination, it's catching.
Yeah, this has never happened before, so it's so hilarious to me that I was over here talking and like you just couldn't hear me.
Okay, now everything works. For some reason, I told them right before the show, like, sometimes my internet drops and then it'll pick up on my hotspot, and it dropped right when we started the show. And when it went to the hotspot, it just decided that Raz doesn't count.
I'm a real boy. Yay.
Okay, so yes, give us an overview. That would be awesome. Unless I missed it when I was.
No. Okay. It's the story of Mr. Ross or Herb. I give his name in there somewhere. Basically, it's a diary, and it's a man. It's an older man, an older grumpy man, an older grumpy crotchety New Englander man, which I'm familiar with being one myself, whose wife passed away about a month ago, and he's kind of having a hard time with it, and being grumpy and not wanting help, and he runs into something that his wife always kind of had a joke with the kids when they were little about Laundrylegs, the big centipede, kind of like the caterpillar in the Alice in Wonderland. She had a giant centipede that hung up by the washer and dryer, and she'd tell them, Laundrylegs news. And suddenly he starts to see it, and he's not sure if it's real or not. Basic setup. Yeah. And it goes downhill from there.
I can really empathize with that right now, like not knowing if something's real or not,
Yes.
Totally.
That was perfect.
That was
excellent tie-in.
Yeah.
That was good.
I see, for me, I was a caregiver for my grandparents for the last decade of their life. We moved them into my mom's house. We didn't want to put them in any sort of center or anything like that.
Yes.
Wanted to keep them around family because that's how you keep people going. You have constant interaction and stuff. And Papa had dementia, but it wasn't bad. And he wasn't actually really upset by it. He'd get up in the day and just be like, "Where am I at, kid? I'm at Carm's, right?" And that's my mom's name. He's like, "Yeah." "And that's Daisy the dog. Yeah. Coffee's over there. Yeah. TV's over there. Yeah. What town am I in?" And sometimes he'd remember, sometimes he wouldn't. Some mornings he'd wake up and get ready to go take care of the cows, and he hadn't had those since like the 50s or 60s.
Yeah.
And we'd tell him there were no cows, and he'd be like, "Oh, good, I can go back to bed." And he never bothered. It never upset him though. As soon as he figured out, he'd say, okay. And the biggest problem with him is he would eat a lot because he'd forget that he'd already eaten, and he had a real big sweet tooth. But if your biggest problem when you're 90 years old is that you're stealing chocolate when you're not supposed to, I don't think it's a big problem. But he did get sad about a couple things, like he wasn't allowed to drive anymore, and he couldn't go home on his own.
Yeah.
And Grandma was fine right up until everything. She just did her thing. Mentally she was fine. She had one injury, went into the hospital, and never came back. But with Papa, it was after that. It was like there wasn't a huge decline. He didn't have a lot of things, but I could feel with the guy where it's just like, we're going to take away. If I'm crazy, if I'm not really seeing this, if it's not really there, do I have to end up being taken away, being locked up away from my family, being put somewhere where I'm not going to last anymore?
Right.
And so that, and the centipedes are creepy as fuck. So
yes, they are. Yes, they are. And I've had a couple of run-ins with various centipedes that just startled the shit out of me. Coming home from work and going to jump in the shower, and you kind of pull the shower curtain closed and you're starting to wash up, and you look over and there's one on the inside of the shower curtain, like just right there. And I'm screaming like a 5-year-old girl and doing a weird dance in the shower.
We actually have a resident centipede down here in the basement at Pickwitch that I've seen like at least 9 times already in just a few times I've been here. And usually, they'll scatter when I come in, but for some reason, this particular one will just stay where it's at. I'll make noise by it and everything, and it'll just stay put. Yep. It'll get a little bit closer to kind of like be near where I am, and then it just does its thing. And if I move somewhere, it moves over to where I am. So it's like it's my shadow. It's super weird.
It's very friendly.
Very friendly, yeah.
I've gotten to where I'm okay with spiders. I'm okay with a lot of insects that I didn't used to be. As I've gotten older, they're just like a necessity. You have to just like get okay with them. But no, centipedes, I always think of if you've seen the movie Naked Lunch with based on William S. Burroughs' book. The movie's kind of about the writing of the book, but they have this place where they're walking around and they have centipedes that are so like 10-foot long ones that are hanging down that they're selling for meat and stuff at markets. And it's just like, oh God.
Yeah. No,
we're supposed to give it a name now.
Yeah.
I may do that soon.
Yeah. I am not, I'm better with insects. Bees and wasps and things like that, unless they're actually stinging me, I'm okay. But yeah, things with too many legs freak me out. Things with no legs, the snakes, freak me out. Whenever anybody asks me why do you write horror stuff, I'm like, well, the advice that they give beginning writers is write what you know. And I'm a giant fraidy cat and I'm afraid of everything. So being scared in my mind a lot.
I love bugs. I mean, I always have since I was a kid. The only 2 no's that I have just straight out, roaches and bed bugs that freak me the fuck out just mentally so bad. It's not a fear. I just want to burn a whole house down if I see one of either of those. Yeah. So like those I'm just not cool with. Any other bug though, if I see it crawling on me, I'll be like, oh look, we had a spider down here the other day, folded out flat. It was about that big. And I was just sitting down here. I was at the theme park all day, came and sat in the basement, and it was just on my lap. All of a sudden, it was just on my lap, just sitting there. I looked down at it. It looked up at me, and I was like, buddy, I'm going to have to move you. And I just very gently moved my shirt a little bit, helped it to the floor, and it just took off. And then someone else saw it the next day and killed it. I'm like, that was my buddy, man.
You should have introduced it to the centipede.
I know. They could have been friends.
I had a buddy.
Centipede's in a different basement.
Bring it over. I had a cricket that used to jump into my hand in one of the places I lived in, and it was like this big of a cricket, like one of the big glossy black ones.
Yep.
And he would just like hang out and hop over and sit in my hand, and I'd sit and talk with him for a while. And like people didn't believe me until they'd come and join me, and then they'd be like, "You have a cricket that fucking jumps into your hand," and yeah, he's my buddy. And I put him down, he'd hop off, and then somebody killed him and laid him on my bed. Like, I know who it was. It was a jerk of a neighbor. and we didn't really lock the doors because we were living in this like hippie commune kind of thing going on. I wasn't a hippie, but I needed a place to stay, and they had an open room in the basement, so it was like, okay.
Yeah, but that's still kind of weird and more than vaguely threatening, actually. What?
It's it's like the horse head, you know, like from The Godfather. This is like,
yeah, that's what
we got together, and they're like, we're gonna kill this cricket and put it in our bed.
I'm just imagining the amount of time it took him to like find the cricket, because that wasn't the only creepy crawly that lived down there.
Yeah,
he was just the one that was my friend. But some people, you know, they're just horrible human beings.
The cricket owed him money, you know.
Kind of like in your book, Friends in High Places, that is also something people should really read. If he wasn't an asshole, then some things wouldn't have happened to him later on down the line.
That's true. Says that right in the beginning.
Exactly. That's one of my. I love how that book starts. Guys, I went and power read through as much of Rob that I could find online, and he has this book called Friends in High Places also. And that one's still rather recent, isn't it?
Looks like this. Actually, it's from 2018.
Oh God, I'm terrible. But that is
go ahead.
Oh, it's a wonderful book, and it's kind of got the coming of age thing going with it. And something that I noticed I always try to pick up on what an author's kind of their language or their theme that they kind of have going in the background of maybe not all, but a lot of their stories. And like for some people, it's like Curtis is very much about the things that are like the empty hungers that want to give form or be given form, or that just want to devour. Joshua was all about death and whether it's good or bad or whatever. And you have, very similar to me, worries about control. I think losing control of yourself, not knowing what's right and what's wrong, or not being able to control a situation because it gets away from you. And that's my big, like, I really resonated with what you wrote, but like it scared me because I'm like, yeah, dude, that's exactly what I'm afraid of most, is not having.
Yeah, my biggest fear at the moment, and it actually has been for a while, actually is anything like Alzheimer's. I do not want that. It runs in my family, and my brain is smooth like an egg, and stuff just slides right off. Like names slide right off, and names, numbers, all kinds of stuff just doesn't stick, which is worrying if starting to lose yourself into and forgetting who you are is kind of one of your big fears. So
yeah, that's I have epilepsy, and so between the meds and just what epilepsy naturally does to your brain, I'm just starting, as I get older especially, just losing everything. And I either forget huge things, or I forget that I've been holding a conversation with myself in my head about something and nobody else is partial to it, and I just start talking about exactly what, like I start up a conversation with somebody like over halfway through it, and they're like, what are you even talking about? And I'm like, oh, well, how would I know that? Well, you said this about 20 minutes ago, and I just, squirreled all the way over there. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, Shannon.
But
I'm kind of the opposite. I will have a conversation with someone, and we will discuss something, and like we can come to a decision about it. And 2 or 3 days later, I will remember that we discussed. I remember the topic. I remember that we discussed it. I know that we had the discussion and the conversation, but I can't remember what we decided, and I can't remember what their points were, and I just know that we had the conversation, but all of the details of it are gone, which is incredibly frustrating to the people around me. And I know how they feel because it's frustrating to me too.
Shannon, I just got it when you put the laugh. Yeah, you'd already hide, and you got us. I have a friend who will only communicate in text because he can't remember his conversations, so he wants to be able to scroll and see if he mentions something to somebody or not.
I have noticed that's incredibly helpful. And I'm torn between the like the old man thing of well, the phone's for talking on the phone. You're supposed to talk to somebody. That's what a phone is for. And being very aware that if I do have a phone conversation with someone, I'm not going to remember shit about what was said. But if I'm texting with them, yeah, I can scroll back for years and find out actually, oh, I said that. Okay. Cool. Being able to use my phone as like a big crutch to my memory has kind of helped a lot.
Oh yeah, I do that, and I just like have pages of general things that I know I forget a lot.
Yes.
And so I have like different files, and I say, I joke that I keep half my brain in the cloud and Rez has the other half. So but do you get the thing? Hi everybody. Ratatosker is already getting ready to get drunk on this one because I'm totally squirreling off of the memory thing. But as soon as you go to look something up, like, it right before you hit enter on the search engine. You're just like, if you describe it well enough to yourself that you can Google it, or you're IMDbing the name of a movie and trying to figure out what the actor is, it's like, and it's, oh, I just got it. I got it right before I hit enter. I don't get it all the time, but I feel fortunate when I do.
I don't get that, but I do know, I don't know actors and actresses' names at all. If I know someone, they are probably huge and have been for a while because their name's been around long enough to stick. But I'll remember who they play. Like I'll remember the character. So I'll see someone in something and know that they played the butler in this other movie that I can't remember the goddamn name of, but this was about, and I'll know the plot of the movie that they were in and who they were in it, but I can't remember the name of the movie. I can't remember. I was fantastic at going into Blockbuster. Remember Blockbuster? Do you guys?
Yeah.
I worked at Blockbuster and Hollywood. Every video store chain ever in the history of time I have worked at.
Then you probably hated people like me who would walk in and say, I'm looking for a movie. And it's got this guy, I can't remember his name, but he's got like blonde short hair with a razor cut eyebrow. And then I could tell you what was happening in the movie.
See, I actually love people like you because that was a challenge for me. And it was actually fun to me when someone would come in, because then I'd get to be a part of the story that they would tell people later. Like, I couldn't figure out what it was. So this guy at this video store, somehow, man, he just knew. And I was always that guy in the video stores around here that just knew that you could just come in. Even if you didn't want to come and shop at mine, you could just come and ask me and go to the video store you wanted to rent it from.
Yeah, for me, it was the guy at the Blockbuster downtown was, I think he had high blood pressure because he saw red face. I was like, the kid with high blood pressure who knows everything, he told me, and I'd be able to tell him what the hell I rented. Yep. But
yeah, I was that guy here.
Yeah.
That's a conversation with my mother and I. We'll just be like, okay, you remember we watched it the other night. It was after the volleyball game, but it had the one guy that you like from, oh God, that other movie with the dinosaurs, and it had him doing this with, and she'll be like, yeah, and he was in this other thing with, oh God, that guy that was on Sherlock in the background. Yeah. And then we finally, like, we don't ever come up with any of the names, but we're like, yeah, that one. Okay. I like him. Me too.
I shock people a lot. People that know me or just look at me assume that I only watch horror and know about horror. My top favorite film is actually 16 Candles. It's not even a horror movie. So, like, I would always like shock the crap out of the people that know me are just customers because they would think, oh, you know about this. But then they'd ask me like about kids movies, about family movies, about adventures, actions. And I would know all that shit too, just because I watch everything that exists ever.
Yeah.
Almost my thing.
Creator's biggest fear is forgetting what they created. My worst nightmare. Yes. I read stories that I've written and I'm just like, that was mine.
All the time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I do that.
I think part of it is like with me, I have eidetic memory, but I've got brain damage. So I will get triggered by scents, like the smell of something, the way something looks at a certain time of day, like, and that just triggers like this sometimes multi-hour, a couple times multi-day brain dump of all this information that my brain has just been storing, waiting to just say, hey, look at me, I know what this is. So like, if I want to remember something, I have to build triggers in. So when I went to med school and survived all the way to the end, I basically everything I needed to know about the human body, I implanted in my brain with stuff that was already in it, and it was entire albums worth of grunge music from the 90s. So now when I go back and listen to Nirvana or Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, I'll hear one of those songs, and I'll suddenly also remember every nerve in the human body and what muscles they innervate, just randomly. Like,
wow.
So I get these fun brain dumps, but I just had to take stuff that existed in my head before the brain damage and combine it with new information, and then it's just always there. But I still have to get the trigger before I remember.
And apparently you also love DuckTales.
Woo-hoo. Yes, I do. I do love DuckTales. I snuck that detail into a snippet of a story for an anthology one time, but I do love DuckTales.
And if we had Jeremy on right now, he would suddenly be pulling up a DuckTales comic book and being like, by the way, this one is about memory loss.
Oh, nice.
My goal is to build the giant Scrooge McDuck vault, but instead of money, I just want to swim in herb. That's it. I just want to take laps through giant towering piles of marijuana, and I don't think that's too much to ask. I feel like that's a normal life request right there.
I'd take the money.
Same. I think you could buy more herb to build another thing with all the money.
No, because one day our economy is going to collapse, and we're going to be basically in the dark ages. Money is going to be worth nothing, but my giant vault of marijuana will be worth everything.
I just don't want to have. I just don't want to have to work anymore.
No, I'm tired. I won't need a job. I'll own it. I'll own the land. I won't pay taxes anymore because it'll be on my own little island, and I'll never have to work. I can just.
We're going to buy the island off of Nova Scotia for $50,000.
Yeah, it's still available. Still available.
If you don't mind the cold, there's an island off of Nova Scotia that actually has little huts and stuff towards the beach, and then a big
multi-level log cabin with
satellite type of thing.
Comes with its own dock, its own boat.
Over on Nova Scotia that you can buy for the low price of $50,000.
Nice.
Tell them we sent you.
I'm not that bad with the cold.
I like the cold. I can't feel it anyway, and I live in Ohio, so I really don't care about cold. I go to Florida in February, and I'm wearing a t-shirt and shorts, and they're like, "Aren't you dying of cold right now?" And I just say, "I'm from Ohio," and they go, "Oh," and they kind of hang their heads in shame and they walk away.
How are you guys on the East Coast with weather? It was like 90 here in Nebraska today.
That was the day before yesterday. It was in the kind of middle to high 80s. Day before yesterday and the day before that. And then yesterday it was about 50. And today it was about the same, but since it was raining more, it felt colder.
He's in Salem, by the way, everyone. So
yeah,
that's why I'm
described the same exact weather we were having over here in Southern Ohio, like to a T. That's literally how weird it's been over here too.
Well, my day job. I'm a letter carrier, and I used to have a customer whose daughter lived in Colorado, and she would. It was about a 3-day difference. Her daughter would tell her what kind of weather they were having there, and she would tell me, in 3 days is going to be such and such, and in 3 days that weather would arrive, because we're about 3 days behind Colorado and Nebraska. So
that makes sense.
Yeah,
I live.
That was helpful.
I live in Lincoln, and we have. I'm sure you're just like, well, this is the stupidest book interview I've been on for a while. We just like to chat sometimes.
Nope.
But in Nebraska, we have the Offutt Air Force Base. There is one of the weather divisions is run there, and it's hosted out of there. So they joke around that there's the Oma Dome, that Offutt can control the weather, and that they will put up this big dome over Omaha so that all of the bad storms skip over it. And then over here in Lincoln, we have live here. I don't hate it yet. So I've been here over 20 years.
The wind can manifest.
North Platte.
Yeah, the wind can manifest and mug people there. That's what I've learned about Lincoln.
Yeah, they're it's all flat, but the buildings will, as you're going downtown, there are enough tall buildings that you'll get these wind tunnels that will be going, and there's little pockets too where we were sitting outside last year. He came to visit. It was on a trip, and we were going to see Henry Rollins. And there's this little place to sit outdoors that takes the corner of one street that was right across the street from there. And we just eaten and went outside to sit there for a while and just chat and have a smoke. And this other guy came out and sat down with his food on a table, and like the wind
Metal
just
tables
picked
and
up
chairs.
metal tables and chairs. The tables are falling over. His food is flying. The chairs are rolling across the thing. And it was just like, oh my God.
And right after he stood
Poor
up,
guy.
the table lifted and took off a little bit too, the whole table. And like these were not light things. Like
No.
even the chairs, like they had weight to them. And like, and I just watched them all lift up off the ground and go. I'm like, well, that's the thing that happened just now.
Yeah. But because of it, it's because we're caught in kind of a depression in the plains, and the storms will go around us. Like they will split up and go, or we'll get a little bit of rain in one area. But we get so dry here, it'll be raining like 2 miles out of town for 5 days in a row, and yet Lincoln is in a drought because the cone of safety keeps all storms away from us. But we actually have had a little bit of rain in the past couple of days. But other than that, it splits, and then it'll go this way, and then it will go around Omaha again on the maps. It's weird to look at our maps. And North Platte, you live in a scary place. Like you live in a very haunted place in Nebraska. From what I've heard, you'll have to let me know if I'm right or not. But I've heard horror stories about the ice house and some other places there that are kind of interesting from friends.
You might have to visit that.
Well, the ice house I heard was torn down, but I had a friend who was telling me these stories in college, and he was literally like in tears talking about his experiences, like going in and visiting stuff. And this was, like a macho college guy trying to show off about stuff, but then telling his stories that scared him enough that he was like crying. And I felt bad for it. It wasn't like, haha.
It's my favorite part of storytelling, when you're like sharing true stories and you see that look in their face when they're telling you the story, and you see the tears rolling down, like, and like how connected they are to what they're telling you. So like you get that connected, and suddenly you can feel the chills down your spine when they're talking. You can always tell a real moment from a fake one, man. Like straight up.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a couple of stories that I've written that I like to read. I like to do public readings, and there's a couple of stories that I have that I like them, and I think that they would read very well, but they're never going to be published because they're written just for me, and I can't read them. I can't read them to anyone because I'll cry, and I know I'll cry because I've tried it, and I just nope. And I wound up crying because they're nonfiction.
Yeah.
Basically.
I went through this accidentally. I made her interview me because I just put out a book a couple weeks ago. So I had her interview me a couple weeks ago, and I did a story that was super personal, thinking, "Oh, this is no problem. No, I don't ever get affected like that." And I'm getting through the story, and I can feel it. I can feel the tears just like starting to form. And I'm like, "No." So I don't think I can do that one ever again live like I did the other day. It's now in my not read out file.
Yeah.
I do have a question about your process. Like, do you have any specific routines or anything like you do to kind of set the stage for you to start, like when you sit down to write? Like, for example, there's a particular candle that I'll light if I'm writing about the town I grew up in, because it just reminds me of all the memories and things like that. Sometimes it's like a bag of bacon jerky.
No, I wind up. I write in the morning. I go into work about 2 hours early, and take over like the front conference room. Doesn't matter. Nobody's there but some of the clerks who are on the workroom floor sorting everything. And it's A, quiet, and B, there's nothing else for me to do. Because if I'm home, I'm constantly, my brain is always telling me, you could do this and you could do that. And there's things I want to get done so that I don't have to do them when I'm done writing. I have to get them done now. But one thing leads to the next thing, leads to the third thing, and I never wind up getting the writing done. And at the end of the day, I'm fucking pissed at myself because I did it again.
Yeah.
So I go into work in the morning, and just to kill my distractions. And I also work in a stupid brick block in the middle of a dead zone, and I don't have like there's no Wi-Fi in the building. I don't have good signal there. So I can't even really like get lost doing research, because I do the same thing with research. I'll look up one thing, which will lead me to the next thing, which will lead me to the third thing, and I didn't get anything done. So the only thing, aside from that, the only recurring thing that I do is I have a playlist, it's just called My Writing Music. It's the same, I think it's 16 songs. It's all instrumental, because if there's words, I will sing along, and I can't sing one thing and write the other thing. And it's like I was saying before we got on the air about listening to something that I know by heart to fall asleep to, because it kind of shuts my brain off. If I'm listening to this music to kind of drown everything else out that's going on, it kind of frees up everything in here so that I can stop listening to the music and actually start getting writing. And it is always the same. It's the same 16 songs in rotation, so that it's not a surprise. And I do think that actually kind of tweaks a little part in my brain that says, okay, it's a playlist, it's time to write.
Okay.
And it does seem, I don't have any actual evidence that it works. I don't have anything I could point to, but it feels like it works.
I get that. I have a playlist that has the same songs on it too.
Mine's all damn it. I was going to give him a plug. It's an electronic. It's an album. It's a group that puts out. It's all almost like theme music. It sounds like it all belongs on like a movie bed.
Okay.
And they have like an action album and a fantasy album and a mix. Something X. Maybe it's Music X. I think it's Music X. Anyway, it's on Spotify. But yeah,
if you remember a site, we'll put it in the comments, or you can say it. You get it before the show goes. We'll get it. I found, if you can train your brain, it takes like 6 weeks or so to actually form something as a hobby, so that, or not a hobby, a habit.
Yes.
Similar letters. Yeah, I can word.
The same word. You're a writer. You can say that.
Yeah. But I can't. I try writing to word. I can't do that, because even though I don't understand the words, I know what the songs are about. So I can.
Yes.
I start singing in Norwegian, and I can't. But listening to like blues or jazz or something like that, which aren't my main cup of tea, but are pretty. I can sync with them. Helps me a lot. Because if I listen to anybody doing like musicals or something like that, even if it's just like a piano, I'm suddenly like, "Do you hear the people sing?" Or something. And
I actually have a couple of suggestions for you guys. One is Apocalyptica. They take very known music from all over and they play it all on electric cellos. They have one that's just
familiar.
For example, they have a "Hey Man, Nice Shot" by Filter. No lyrics whatsoever. It's just all the music with cellos.
I would be singing it in my head still.
See, you can, but it's also easy to tune out. It's easy to tune out the fact that lyrics should be, because like you're hearing the song like pure without lyrics. So it's just the melody. And then there is Midnight Syndicate. They are amazing. They do themed albums for different haunts all across the world. They're Ohio-ish. They're an Ohio band. But it's all mostly just instrumental, and sometimes like little sound bites for like the carnival or like sound effects in the background. But they've even got like Dungeons and Dragons albums they've made.
Nice.
D&D theme stuff. So like they've also got a lot of really cool stuff that I listen to. And finally, the music scores of Danny Elfman.
Well, yeah.
I listen to a lot of his scoring too randomly, because most of it's not even meant to ever have lyrics, so it helps.
Yes.
Yeah, he's really good. Something just came up with him the other day, and I can't remember what it was. So
they just did a Hollywood Bowl, and he took off his shirt, and he has 10 times more tattoos than anyone ever knew he had. It was really shocking, but cool.
I can't say that I actually know what he looks like. I've never gone to look for him, but I will have to now go check and see his tattoos. Mm-hmm. I have a whopping 2 on my arms that I would show you, but I have issues showing my tattoos on this because my microphones and stuff get in the way, and I end up showing people the backs of my arms that have nothing on them because I can't camera well.
Now I have an independent webcam, so I can move it around and all that. It's so weird to get used to that.
Yeah, I'm always like, check this out. Oh, wrong arm. Oh, wait, I have to twist it this way. Oh, no.
You mentioned something else I wanted to ask you about, Rob. We were talking about rabbit holes and ways you distract yourself when you're researching. Do you have a particularly favorite rabbit hole like that you went down during research, or one that just made you think, oh my God, what did I just read?
That I remember?
Yeah.
I mean, probably, but I see. I don't know, because I will research the most trivial little things. For instance, so in Friends in High Places takes place in 1975, and it is in a fictional town in Indiana. And there was one point where the what's on television at a certain time of the day comes into play. And it took me fucking forever, but I found the not playlist, but like the TV guide listing for that season from the nearest big city that would have been where I kind of set the town. Took forever just so that I could say that Mod Squad was on instead of All in the Family, because All in the Family wouldn't have been on then, and no one would know that shit. No one would know.
But you know.
Yeah, it took like a whole day to find that.
I love that.
For nothing but I know that that's actually what they would have been watching.
Then. You know, there are two people out there that are going to be like, I'm so glad he got that right, because if he didn't, I would have written him a letter to let him know exactly how wrong he was, because I was in that age at that time, and this is what we watched in that area.
I get locals that'll sometimes pick up some of my stuff and be like, oh my God, did you used to go to this laundromat in 1985? Because this was exact. And I'm like, yeah. Like, yeah, that's where every poster was, every tear in it, every nicotine stain on the wall outside, like everything. Because that's how my brain thinks too. I want to create this picture that I can live in, because it's accurate and it's real, and maybe most people will never know, but I'll know. And it's a weird driving obsession to get those little details. Like, I spent 5 hours researching the history of Craftsman houses, all because I wanted to get the layout of a particular model of Craftsman houses correct. 5 hours. That equated to all of half of a paragraph in a novel. That's it. 5 hours.
I get really mad when people mess things up. So I'm obsessive.
Yes. And I there have been times when I've been reading something and they'll reference something that I actually know about, and they'll get it wrong. And it takes me right out of the story, and I'm just like, no, that's not right. And I am not terrified, but I really don't want to do that to someone. I want to make everything in the reality-based part of the story as real as possible, so that there's nothing at all like already testing your suspension of disbelief when I get to the unbelievable bullshit that I'm going to ask you to now believe in. And if all along you've been shaking your head and saying, nope, that's not right. Nope. Oh, he got that wrong. Then by the time you get to, and the car flew, then, you're already tired. You're already just fuck it. And they don't care.
Yeah.
That's something I do as an editor when I'm doing things. I'll be like, that's wrong. So here are like 5 different options that you could use instead. I was reading somebody who was writing a story set in the future where organic materials had basically been outlawed. Everything was grown from petri dishes, and you could only have basically plastic stuff unless you were of the super, super, super elite class of genetically altered humans and stuff. And he had somebody tied up on a wooden pallet. And I was like, well, wood's illegal and exceptionally valuable in this world. So one or the other. So you wouldn't have these people in a warehouse having wooden pallets. So then I had to go through, and I think I spent like 45 minutes studying vulcanized rubber and various other things to give this guy like options. I'm like, okay, you'd want it to be this and this because this, and he's just like, okay.
You need a polymer, but which polymer?
Yeah, and you do stuff like I have a scene in one of the books that I'm working on that has one of the characters' fathers is a carpenter, and they're like building a ceiling. And I remember when I was a kid, this guy, teenager, this guy who was a contractor was going to help us with our house, and he was showing off his house, and we ended up not going with him because he would show off also like look at my boots. These are made from like 10 different almost endangered species that I paid, $5,000 for. Here's my volleyball court. Here is the roof of my house that is done in my grandmother's quilting pattern and inlaid wood. And so I was like, well, that's kind of cool. That would be something that you could have somebody posh do.
Yeah.
But because I wanted to lay out the wood just right, I've spent like weeks studying wood and what you call the different techniques, what colors are right, which way the grain runs, how you cut things. And it's going to be like, a half a paragraph when it shows up. But if I don't, there's going to be a carpenter who reads the book and is like, well, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also edit, and I was editing something. It was a police procedural. It was set in a real town, in a real city. And there was an officer who was drinking on duty, and they handled it a particular way in the book. And I thought, that doesn't sound right. So I called the police in that town, and I spent about 45 minutes talking with a desk sergeant. I was like, have you got time to ask you a couple of questions? This is going to sound really weird, and explain what I wanted. And he was like, yeah, I got a minute. Go ahead. And so he went over how they handle that. And I just took copious notes that I then passed off to the writer and said, I'm not going to do this for you because it won't be in your voice, but this is all the research you kind of should have done. So, here you go.
I got really lucky with that.
I accept tips.
When I was doing like film and TV work and stuff, I got to be on a set a couple of times with this guy named Cooper, who's not like my best friend in the world, who actually was a retired police chief in a small town here in Ohio. And all my writing is based on the same small town. And I got hooked up with him so early in my writing career that everything that involves anything police procedural, if I've already forgotten it or it's not in the I can't tell you how many Word documents just full of notes between me and him talking and me learning things, I'll just call him. I can call him at 3 a.m. if I want, like, hey, Coop, what's the code for this? Or what would happen if you do this? And he'll just be like, oh, that's this. Okay, bye. And that's it. And then he just hangs up and just gives me the answer. So it's really important to get people like that. And for a lot of writers out there, like if you don't know the material, there's 3 geneticists that I for 6 months at different professors of genealogy, I would just contact, not genealogy, but genetics, sorry, to figure out how to make a zombie virus more believable and more realistic based on today's society and modern flu remedies. So for 6 months, I talked to all 3 of them who had very different opinions, and they're all in the same field, but they very often butted heads on what they believed and didn't believe. So I figured they were 3 good ones to pick because they all disagreed with each other about how things would work. So I figured that was going to give me a broader sense of what to do, what not to do if these people had different opinions.
Yes.
It's cool that we get to do that. You know what I mean? Like we have this thing that we love doing that makes us talk and learn all these really cool fucking things that no one knows because no one's just made that phone call or that email. But we get to do that, and it's normal. It's actually normal.
Have you ever freaked anybody out trying to ask questions that you're like, oh, you know about this? And then they're like, why would you ask me that?
No, because I know so many horror writers, and they know people, and so I wound up meeting people through them, or there's someone that I know and get along with already, and if I'm getting along with them, then they're going to have a weird sense of humor anyway. I had a friend of mine, Matt, who I knew him when he was in college, and I knew him. He was an EMT. And I came to him with a couple of questions, and it turned out that he had moved to a different state, and he was their chief dispatcher for the region that he was in, and he was one of the ones that had helped rewrite their response playbook, basically, for all their procedures. And so I would come to him with all kinds of questions, because I know that in any kind of medical situation, there's the TV version, which looks good, and the version that works. And he would tell me about the version that works, because I didn't really feel like doing all this shit to myself and having to actually experience it.
Right.
So that was great.
It's another lesson for future writers out there. Write what you know and what you can experience as much as possible, and seek out new experiences, but have boundaries for yourself. Don't give yourself a heart attack to know what it feels like.
No.
Yeah, I asked somebody some questions on Reddit once who was like, I'm a work at a morgue or something like that. And I was like, okay, so I'm a horror writer, and I have these very specific questions about, decomp and some things like that. And after I got done writing them the questions, they were like, I'm actually not going to give you any answers, because you kind of seem creepy, and like this is something that you might actually be doing to people. You can go look on the dark web for stuff like that if you want. And I wouldn't suggest asking other people these questions unless they're really good friends of yours.
You need to be careful for your searches too, because I was flagged by the FBI one time, and then a year later I got flagged the second time, but it was more intense. So someone actually showed up to my door. No joke. Someone showed up. I even have I used to have the original letter that they sent the first time when they flagged me as a notice, like what's, hey, we're keeping an eye on you kind of a thing. I'm like, oh, that's weird. And when they actually came to my door, I was like, listen, would you like to come inside? And I offered. They didn't take me up, and I was like, I opened my door, I was real wide, and you could see all the props, paintings, all this cool stuff. I was like, I work in the horror industry. I'm not trying to murder anyone. I'm not a serial killer, as far as I know, and I'm not doing any of these terrible things that I'm being flagged for. It's for a story, and I would be more than happy if you gave me an email address to send a book to, or whatever you need to prove it. But I promise you, I am not this person. And after the second flag, and they were like, okay. So to my knowledge, I haven't been flagged again, but it's a weird thing. You gotta watch what you're researching sometimes. Or go to a public library and research on their computer.
I'd try to bug my mom because she's a nurse, and I'd be like, so how long does sepsis take? And no, I'm not going there with you. I refuse to answer your questions. And then my neurologist, because for the epilepsy, I was kind of, he's got a really dark sense of humor. And so I started asking him questions, and he's like, oh, I love this kind of stuff. Let me go get props. And so he's running out, and I'd asked him what would happen if you spiral cut a brain at one point. And he's just like, let me show you. I got to go get this from the other room. And he's like, okay, so this is how it goes. And you'd be cutting it this way, and this is how it'd look. And I was like, yes, got my hook up here.
I have a friend of mine who I met. They used to be for 3 years. There was a convention in New Hampshire called Anthocon. It was a writers' convention, and it was 90% of them were horror writers. And a friend of mine showed up with his girlfriend at the time, and someone said something about the things we would be discussing freaking her out, and she said, "Oh no, don't worry about it. I'm a pathologist." And immediately she was surrounded by people who were all like, can I just ask you one question? When he's done, can I ask you? And just a whole group of us around her asking her questions, and she was just calmly answering everything. And it got to the point where they were calling, panels were happening that we were supposed to be watching, and we were all like, we'll get there. And because we had this one person that we could ask all this stuff. I think the only time that I've ever that anyone actually kind of gave me the side eye when I was asking questions. So the pathologist's name is Karen. I wrote her into a story. She asked me can you put me in a story? Sure. Can you kill me in a really weird way? You bet. And so I did, but the things that happened, the way that the death happened and the things that would happen after the death, she's the one that I would normally be asking these things. So I wound up I wanted to get them right because she's the expert, and I'm writing the story for her. And so I wound up I asked her for references, and she put me in touch with a friend of hers who didn't know me, but I at least had Karen saying he's a writer and he's going to ask you questions because you can't ask me. And the friend was still kind of like, this is kind of fucking weird questions to be asking me about a baby.
Oh.
But I had the introduction, so it wasn't that bad. Yeah. I've even in my postal uniform stopped in at the I work in Marblehead, a very small seaside town, and I stopped in at the fire station, the fire department that's only about a block away from the post office, to ask them about the possibility of a car fire starting in the rain, because of sparks and getting like, how would that work? And I had 2 or 3 guys standing around answering my questions about how a car fire would start if there was an accident in a skid, and sparks and gasoline, no matter if there were rain, and what would happen. I was like, you guys are great. Thank you.
That's awesome.
That is very cool.
People that have like interesting jobs, or just jobs that you don't like, that aren't common, become like superheroes to us, because like, and it's one of those situations where they're like, all of a sudden, like you said, that, you know, she was surrounded by people asking her questions. Like, if you've got a unique job or something that is useful, you don't even know. Like, you could be a carny, and suddenly I want to write a story about a carnival, so I'm hunting down carnies. Like, and I meet one, and then there's like 50 writers, and they're going, hey, like, people are like, we celebrate people. We tell their stories that they tell us through our characters. So that, like, that's like this interesting thing that we have as writers that we get to do all the time, is like relive these experiences that other people have and show them to other people, and then they show them to other people, hopefully. Yeah. Which gets me into a question about characterization. Oh, go ahead.
Now, I was just going to point out real quick, I'd forgotten at the beginning of the show. If y'all look up in the top right corner, you'll see a QR code that will take you. You can use it. You can actually scan it online, and it will take you straight to our website. So you can check out everything PBDC related there. But cool. Go on. Sorry, that was just me thinking. I was like, oh, I was supposed to know about that. I forgot.
So characterization. Is there anyone in your life that you find that you've accidentally modeled like multiple characters after without realizing it at first?
I've done it on purpose.
Well, I mean, I've done it on purpose too, but I've also caught myself sometimes like modeling like different aspects of the same person into like different characters. And this is something that I've heard a lot from other writers too.
Me, sometimes there are times when I've written something and it's done, and I will go back. I've sold short stories, and then when it's published, I've gone back to read it in the book, and as I'm reading it, because it's months later and I've practically forgotten the damn story, I'm like, oh, holy shit, that's me. And I didn't mean to do that. I thought I was writing a different character. I thought I was writing someone else, but I can clearly see it's an aspect of me and something that I was going through or thinking or had on my mind at the time. I have done horrific shit to myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm the same, but it's me and my brother who's no longer with us. Like, for some reason, I write a story and I think, oh, it's this new unique character, different name and everything. And I read it and I'm like, no, I just gave that character my brother's middle name, and that was definitely him. Holy shit. When did I do this? Like, was I awake in the middle of the night or like writing a story I don't remember? So it's funny to me that like, that's why I always ask that question to people, because I'm surprised at how many people say yes. And it's usually themselves or like someone that was like really close to them in life. Like,
yes,
just a complete accidental. You go into that mode and you think you've got a character, and it turns out it was a character, just not the character you thought.
The 3 kids in Friends in High Places, they're all me. They're all just different aspects of me, and I didn't think about that at the time. I was just making them different, but they're just different facets of my character, of me, that I just kind of, focused on that facet for a while and then focused on this facet for a while and just gave them names.
And they're very individually different characters, very strong portrayals of each of their archetypes.
Their last name is all Hyde.
I was going to ask you too, as long as we're talking about characters, mine always just, I start writing and the character's like, no, I didn't do that. Now stop. I wouldn't do that. You're forgetting. I'm actually this person, and you need to change your story now because I've taken over. Is that, do you get that too? The characters just show up and steal things away. And
so you see how there's a Ferris wheel on the cover of this? That's the high place. It's the Ferris wheel, right? You've read the story.
Oh yes.
When I started writing it, there was no Ferris wheel. It's a major part of the story now, And because that's where kids would go. They wouldn't go. The original high place that I had in mind is someplace that I would go. I'm an adult. I'm an adult, and it was in 2017 when I was writing it, not a kid in 1975, and they went somewhere else, and I just kind of had to follow along. That happens a lot. I wind up. I don't always have to move the goalpost. Sometimes I have to move the goalpost, but I don't always have to. But I almost always have to change the route they take to get there. And if what I'm writing, if the way that they would react to what I'm writing wouldn't take them where I need them to go, then I have to change the situation. I have to change what's around them to kind of force them to making those decisions. But it's based on what they would do, not based on, I'm going to have to make this decision because I need them to. That doesn't work.
And that's why it's so important to know your characters, because I write myself into situations like that, like, oh, what would they do? Or I'll think I've got writer's block. And then one of the characters I just start writing clearly wants to go off and do this thing. So even if I'm not going to use in the book, I'll just write that scene to see where it leads. And half the time I find out that they were going to eventually end up where I wanted them to. It's just that they had to tell their own story and get there their own way.
Yes. And I can't, I know people who are like rigid, very structured. And they're going to lay out exactly how the thing's going to go. And they know before they even sit down to write anything, they know exactly what's going to be in each chapter and how each chapter is going to be beginning and end, what's going to be in the middle, and how the whole thing stacks together. And that's my first draft. That's, I tried that once, and that's how I wound up writing. It'll never be published because it's complete shit. But I have a 156,000 word novel just sitting around somewhere. And it's only that big because I had all the things that I had planned for them to do. And God damn it, they were going to do it. And all the things that they wanted to do, which I couldn't really stop them from doing.
Right.
So it wound up massive and overblown and hugely puffy. And it was an exercise. It's never going to see the light of day.
They strike us really hard at school on beats, which is exactly what you're talking about. You know, your beats for every chapter, you know, what needs to happen in the beginning, what's going to happen in the end. And like, we have to write these things where we come up with beats and we follow them in the stories. And even a lot of I'm in speculative fiction too right now, and they're hitting us on beats. And I'm like, well, I got to tell you, I know what I want to happen. And here's what I want to happen. And then I write it and they're like, well, why didn't you follow that beat? I was like, because sometimes you have to ignore beats for the sake of the story. Because if we're just thinking in terms of beats, that's very commercial. And it's very hard for a lot of creatives, not all creatives, to think of it in terms as the commercial and follow every single beat that you write for yourself. But again, I do know writers that do live by their beats, that literally live by their beats.
Yes.
And their novels are fantastic. But that's just not how I write. That's just not what I can do.
And I have gone, if I'm writing something long, by the time I'm done with it, it's not really a first draft. It's kind of draft 1.5 because I'll whatever I wrote yesterday, when I sit down today, I read through all that aloud, fix it, tweak it. And sometimes I'm putting little notes in the sidebar saying, you know, because he did this here, he wouldn't have done such and such back here, or she would have done something back here. When you know, for second draft, add that in. And then for second draft, when I'm adding those things in, sometimes I will see that, something's missing, something that I kind of know but didn't put in because it's just kind of backstory, or it's an extra little bit about the character and the way they would be that I know that I didn't think needed to be in there, so I didn't put it in, but now I see the shit it needs to be in there, and I wind up having to insert some scenes every once in a while just to kind of round it out.
Do you ever try to do NaNoWriMo, the National November Novel Writing Month?
That's how I wound up with 156,000. No, I'm sorry. Yes, I had been writing for 3 months. I had no idea what NaNoWriMo was. I had been working on short stories. And someone said, "You doing NaNoWriMo?" And I said, "The fuck is NaNoWriMo?" And they explained it, and I said, "Sure." And
that's how I got started too.
It was 3 days into it already. And I think that was my first novel attempt. I had no idea what I was doing, but I got 76,000 words out of it. And some of it's decent. I wound up not actually finishing the story because I realized that it had gone off the rails because I was following what the characters wanted to do. And I hadn't written anything long yet. I hadn't tried to write anything long yet. And so I didn't realize that, sometimes the character grabs the wheel and we go over this way. And I wasn't ready for that. Yeah. And so I just stopped. Maybe I'll come back to it someday.
I described it to some
he always wins.
Yeah, 7 or 8 years. I've been able to do it 7 years. But I started the same way you did. I just started writing for just a couple months, and someone told me about it. I was like, let's give that a shot. And that same thing happened to me. I've never published that novel. Yeah. I've never published it. It'll never get published, especially how I wrote it. It will never happen. But elements of it have survived into other projects. But yeah, I was totally about to say something. I don't remember what it was, but I'm sure I'll remember at some point because I'm like that.
I've tried to do it a couple of times, and I am too much of an editor, particularly my own stuff, to actually make it through because it's like, just write, don't edit. And I'm like, that's how I write. I edit everything as I go, and I can't wait until December to start editing my stuff. I have to edit it every time I add anything new to.
I don't wait till December. I don't. So I mean my word counts, and then I go back and still edit things relentlessly the whole time. I'd probably get a lot higher numbers than I did if I wasn't doing that.
Yeah, and I don't like I've had times where in 2 weeks I've pulled off like over 50,000 words, and I'm like, okay, so it's a motivational tool, and it does a lot of good for a lot of people. But if I feel like if I have to do it that fast, I can't do it. But if I'm just writing at my normal pace, sometimes it's one short story in a month, and like I said, sometimes it's 50,000 words in a couple of weeks, and still going on from there. But
I did 29K words in one day, and then like less than a week later, I had a 27K day. And I don't know, I've never been able to repeat those days. They've never happened to me again. But 3/4 of the content from both those days completely usable as it was, and it blew my fucking mind. Like I was in that zone. No one was bothering me. I had my beef jerky. I had plenty of Mountain Dew. I had everything. I had cigarettes, herb. Everything was just near at my desk, and no one talked to me or bothered me. So it just happened. And those were my magic days. I called them that I'll never have again. But those were real magic. But then I have like magic days where I've only written 800 words. But those 800 words are a big deal, and it was something that I was struggling with for a while. And then that day, the 800 words just popped out. It solved my whole problem. It's weird how that works, man.
Before we go into the reading, does anybody have any more questions right now? And you can come up with them afterwards as well. As long as, I don't know, Rob, are you on a schedule at all right now?
Nope.
Okay, we'll keep running. Our current record is 4.5 hours, but I wouldn't ask you to stay on that long. That was kind of that was a project. Basically, it was somebody wanted to prove that they could make it, and they did, and we were very proud. But
yeah, but we are planning a very secret 24-hour stream at some point this year. So it's endurance. It was a little bit of an endurance test. I think that 4-hour.
Yeah, getting practice in there. I do have a question for you that has absolutely nothing to do with writing, but do you have any pets?
Yes.
Would you like to share about them with us?
That's a simple answer. We have 2 dogs. We have an Akita, Keto, and I guess my baby is Sage, who's a red-nosed pitty mix.
Oh, that's
She's
my
a snuggle
sister.
bug.
I have the red and white pit that my dad she was a rescue from they trained fighting dogs on her. And so she was very, She'd been turned in a couple of times, and they finally got her and rescued. She has to wear like the heavy coats and stuff like that to keep her calm down. But she's gotten really, really good over the past couple of years because she came from a very scared place. And it just like my cat has been wandering around here. She's mad at me because she tricked me into like a third can of food. But like, because I don't remember, I need to start marking down because she's a cheater. She'll be like, Mom, you're starving me, even though she has kibble available. And so if she shows up, she's shown up on my lap a couple of times. Just haven't shown. I just like to fix it. And Raz, you have the cats, right?
Yeah, I got Crowley and HPL. Neither with me today, though.
I don't know how well this is going to show over the camera, but that's Sage.
Oh,
doing one of her favorite things in the world, taking a nap.
There we go. Oh, she's so pretty. I love her.
She was also a rescue, strangely, from Ohio.
Nice.
I don't know. She's roughly 2. And I know that she was in Ohio. She was in a shelter in Ohio for a month, and then they put her in a van and drove her for 22 hours to get her here. And I think she was here for 3 days. And when we met her, and they were like, she'll calm down and she'll be different, and she needs to get used to it. And we were like, yeah, we don't care. We're taking her, and we don't know anything about her history, except that she's people shy but dog friendly, so she'll stick with Keto. He's twice her size. He's a great big brother. He's very calm. He's a great big brother. He'll go down. My son's room, he almost has an apartment, is down in the basement, and it's not stairs. They're just regular stairs. And she, for the first 2 or 3 months, wouldn't go down into the basement. She would just stop, and she was nervous. She'd follow Keto around the house, and he'd go downstairs, and she'd just stop. And we have no idea why she did not want to go in the basement. She's finally figured out that it's okay. She followed him down, and now she's cool. She's down there all the time. But for a while, yeah, she was really spooky about going downstairs in the basement.
You mentioned
my mom's dog.
Go ahead.
Oh, my mom's dog she doesn't want her going to the basement, so she has never learned stairs. They got her. Some lady was selling puppies before they were even 6 weeks old, and so Mom got the runt of the litter that was like this big in her hand, and feeding her with syringes and stuff like that. And so we just never taught her how to use stairs so that she wouldn't go up and down them. So that might be part of it, is if the dog never had seen stairs during that time.
No, she'd like in and out of the house. She'd go up and down the front stairs, and we've taken her places where she goes upstairs, up and downstairs in the house. It was just something about she didn't like those particular stairs going down to the basement, and she wouldn't go. And but now she's fine. Now she go down. Keto can't get away from her anymore.
You mentioned someone to touch on where someone had driven, from Ohio the 22 hours. That means a lot here in Ohio, and I don't know if a lot of people know about this. Back in 2013, we passed this thing called Nitro's Law that specifically grants the prosecutors the discretion to charge and prosecute an owner, manager, and employee of a dog kennel who engages in knowingly cruel treatment with either a first-degree misdemeanor or a fifth-degree felony. This was a huge deal because a lot of organizations were forming around that time to save pit bulls, primarily, for dog fighting rings and other bad situations. And it's expanded to all animals, even reptiles now. But there are large groups of people, and I've even been involved in this with dog trade-offs where I drove 6 hours to another person who drove the rest of the way. And it's a big thing here. And we try to get the word out to people all across the U.S. And there is a network of people in every state that will, if you need to get this dog out of this bad situation, but you don't have a place for them, drive to X location. We got a person waiting. Here's their name. Here's who they are. Here's also the history of them as a pet owner. And, so they're going to somewhere safe, safely. And it's just big network of different kennels, different groups of people that all kind of come together over this and make sure a dog gets to its forever home that it deserves, wherever that home may be. So it really means a lot that you had that experience where you actually, had the dog come, drive all that way, to your area then to get it, because this was probably a very unsafe space for that dog when the person rescued it. But they had that kennel the 22 hours away, or the business or whoever 22 hours away to drive it to.
Yes.
So that's just super cool to me, like on a personal level, that's how Sage came into your life. That's really special.
My sister just got a rescue, and it's beautiful little puppy. She's named Murphy. She's still a pup, but
she brown?
She's a no.
Oh no!
But
Murphy brown,
I have an ongoing joke I'll tell you about with my mom about that later. But no, she's a party Yorkie, and they're supposed to be pure white. And she had never not been in a kennel until my sister got her, because she had a couple of black spots on the back of her, which made her not sellable by the breeder. Wow. And so they were gonna, like, when Dad got Piper, she was like 3 hours from being put down, and he was like, I'll drive down there right now and get her. And my sister was the same way. Only this dog, it was just because she didn't go up to full breed standard, they were just going to get rid of the dog. And they found out that she had a litter mate that she'd been with for forever, and they were going to take it too, but somebody else got it. So, and it was at least safe, so she was like, okay. But
I feel like this was a breed invented by Paris Hilton, a party Yorkie. Is what you said?
Yeah,
party? She always carries the little dogs, and, like, I don't know.
It is a little dog, and they're really fluffy. And yes, those breeders suck. You can just sell the pups. You don't have to, it's not a product, it's a pet.
It's my number one life rule. Don't be a dick. That's basically sums that up.
So, if we don't have any questions right now, Rob, would you like to go ahead and give us a read?
Sure.
What are you coming from here? Let's see if it's something I've read yet.
What? Oh,
what book are you reading from?
I was going to read the opening to Laundrylegs.
Oh, all right.
I can read all kinds of stuff, though. I can read you something that isn't finished and no one's ever seen before. It doesn't matter to me.
You can read whatever you want. We're going to give you the show.
All right. Since I set up to read Laundrylegs, I'll read the opening of Laundrylegs. Okay, so the novella is actually set up like it's a diary. So I'm going to read you the first 2 days, which basically sets up the entire rest of the story. All right. I'm going to turn pages. Good. April 1st. Something's going on. Something's wrong. I don't know how to start, but I really need to get this down. I need to keep track. Christ, Martha, I could use you now, damn it. I've never kept a diary. When I was a kid, even a young man, this stuff was for girls. I'm old now, and I guess I know better, but the stuff you learn as a kid can be hard to shake sometimes. Besides, I've never had to do the talking. Anyone needed to make small talk or even a shoulder to cry on, I just sent them to Martha. Sometimes I got annoyed at her yammering, but I have to admit, she had a heart big enough to share with everyone and anyone. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It worked for Martha. I'm just glad I didn't have to do it is all. My wife was also a writer-downer. She wrote lists, and she wrote little reminder notes, and she wrote in her diary. And if she were still here, I'd just have to tell her what happened, and she'd have written it down. But everything else is different since Martha passed, and I need a record of this in case I quit earlier because this felt stupid. It still does. Besides, my hands were shaking. Made it hard to hold the pen. Couldn't sit still. Needed to pace around some. Calm down a bit. I didn't mean to talk about Martha, but I don't know where to start. I want to jump right into it, but that might not make sense later if I need this. If she were here, she'd tell me to start at the beginning and probably do it in that damned, I know you know this, so why do I have to tell you way of hers? Oh, fine, woman. The beginning. It's been a month since we put Martha in the ground. Now, I don't say that in front of the boys or their wives, but that's where we put my wife of nearly 50 years, in the damned ground. And things have been tough. The kids offered to help, especially Brenda, but I wouldn't hear of it. Too proud, I guess. I'm retired, not retarded, I said. I can damn well take care of myself. Thank you very much. Harsh, but I'd been through a lot. Mark and Cece looked a little hurt, especially Cece, but David and Brenda took it in stride. David's always taken after me, and Brenda's got that unflappable nurse thing down pretty well. She's like a black Dixie McCall, though she didn't get the reference when I made it. Emergency was a little before her time. Anyway, they got the point, but that didn't stop the offers or the visits. I was getting by, getting done what needed doing, day to day. Then, yesterday, I noticed my shirt was a little whiffy and realized I'd been wearing it for 3 days. I tried to change, but my drawers were empty and the hamper was overflowing, and I mean right out onto the floor. Now, laundry's always been Martha's job, and I'd forgotten all about it. That rocked me, that I could be so used to her doing something that even in the midst of all this doing for myself, I'd just forget like that. Tell the truth, it reminded me of Mom. A lot. I just blinked at the hamper for a moment, feeling dumb and starting to worry. But I'm having lunch with Mark and Brenda day after tomorrow, and if the kids, any of the kids, start figuring I'm living in dirty clothes, especially Brenda. Well, anyway, I got hold of myself and humped the hamper down to the cellar. This is going to sound... Okay, this is just stupid. This was a stupid idea. April 2nd. I guess it's not stupid, but I feel stupid. Damn it, Martha, why'd you have to leave this for me? While pacing last night, I made some Irish coffee. I had a knock or two of Bushmills while the beans were brewing, and then I guess I made God's blessing a little stronger than I've ever gotten it in a bar, and just kept them coming. That might have something to do with trying to bail on this. I'm not exactly hungover, but the booze definitely helped me get to sleep last night. I need a log, a record. It still seems kind of sissy to call it a diary, in case I'm really... Anyway, I've got to be as detailed as I can. I might need something to look over later. This was all yesterday. Ran out of clothes, like I said, carried the hamper down to the basement, kind of sideways, the stuff that wouldn't fit inside piled up on top, leaning against my chest. At the bottom of the stairs, a good-sized centipede sat about halfway up the wall. It was still, probably trying to blend in and hide, but the basement's painted white, and that dark brown body stood out like a 100-legged sore thumb. I remembered Martha's running joke, so I asked it, "Are you Laundrylegs?" It spooked and shot across the wall, ripping like a flag in a high wind, and disappeared into a crack in the cement. I saw another one farther along, and a tiny one up by the ceiling. Now, the basement stairs dump out in front of the house, but the washer and dryer are in the rear. I hitched up my way back there, that hamper bouncing off my knees and pinning those extra clothes down with my chin. And tucking my chin like that kept my eyes on the floor until I placed the hamper in front of the machine. That's when I finally looked up and froze. "Holy Mary, Mother of God," I said. "You have got to be Laundrylegs." I'm trying to stay focused, to just jot all this down in as much detail as I can while it's still fresh in my mind, but I guess I need to explain the whole Laundrylegs bit, in case things go fuzzy on me. Martha had this running joke with the boys when they were little about the centipede by the washer, and she never dropped it. I thought it was just something from their childhood she didn't want to let go, Even when they were teenagers, she'd say things like, "I saw Laundrylegs by the dryer this time," or "Thought Laundrylegs was gone, but I saw him this morning." Sometimes, especially once the boys were grown and out of the house, I'd offer to come get him out of there, lift him on a piece of paper and toss him out the window, like I did all her spiders. A silly joke with the kids was one thing, but enough was enough. She always said no, said they'd reached an understanding. I thought it was just her nattering away. She went in the basement several times a week doing the laundry, but I've been down there countless times myself over the years, and though I never took any real notice, I assumed there were quite a few bugs and things in the residence. There was no way she could tell even one centipede from another. Even if it wasn't a joke, if she did think she had a Laundrylegs, well, she was probably seeing a whole host of the damned things and just thinking it was the one. Then I saw him for myself. It clung above the washer and dryer, up high by the joists, like a trophy bass over someone's mantle. So big and so still, I thought for a moment it was a fake. Some practical joke Martha hadn't sprung before her heart went. Then I saw the feelers twiddling, spindly things when compared with the legs, and knew it was real. It was huge. I understand they get them big down South America way, but what it put me in mind of was a National Geographic picture I saw once of a man holding up a fossilized bug-looking thing. Lots of legs. But you could see in the photo it was bigger than his head. A whatchamacallit. This was thinner, but longer. 12 inches easy. And the legs. Hell, each leg on the damned thing was at least as big as the whole centipede I'd seen at the stairs. I whispered, no wonder she reached an agreement. That thought spawned another. It wasn't like she could have avoided seeing this thing, and looking at it made my skin crawl. Why hadn't she asked me to get rid of it? From the look of the beastie, though, I couldn't have just shoot it outside with a piece of paper anyway. Not unless the paper was wrapped around a baseball bat. I actually looked around for a bat, or something like it, but there were only storage boxes on those metal shelves against the walls, and the hamper at my feet. Mark and David's bikes from when they were about 15, maybe, but nothing like a weapon. Get done what needs getting done, I told myself. The kids. Maybe I'd do something about the big ugly bastard later, but right then I was still in a whiffy shirt. I said, looks like I'll be doing the laundry from now on. I don't know what kind of agreement you had and Martha had, but maybe we can work something out. I felt silly talking to a bug like that, but I couldn't help it. The truth is, I was freaked out, if not downright scared. The thing was huge. I had a sudden thought. I said, you are Laundrylegs, right? And then caught myself actually waiting for an answer. I really am losing it, I thought. This has to be the one. If there is a bigger one down here, I'm getting a shotgun. I eyeballed the thing. Okay, here's our agreement. I'll do laundry down here. You stay way the hell up there. Deal? Those feelers twiddled. I took that as a yes and set to work. I didn't bother separating lights and darks or colored and whites or whatever, just divvied up the clothes into machine-manageable piles. If my black pants make my white socks gray, then they match. Saves me time and trouble later. Now, the whole time, that honking big centipede watched. At least, I think he watched. What the hell do I know? But it felt like he was watching. I was always aware he was there, especially when I leaned forward to reach behind the machine and turn the water on. I felt a tickle on the back of my neck, a feather-like touch, but when I jerked away, Laundrylegs sat in that same high spot, those long antennae twitching. It was just nerves. The regular centipedes all scattered when I got close, zipping about like quicksilver and scuttling into cracks or in holes and disappearing. Not this guy. He just sat there, twiddling. I said, look, do you have to... I doubt you stayed right there while Martha did the laundry. She would have had me come and get you. Either that, or I would have run out of clean shirts years ago. I started the water running into the machine and added the soap. Looked up. He was still there. I never did, you know. Never ran out of clean shirts. Or pants. Or underwear. Had clean socks up the wazoo, and not one ever went missing in the dryer, you know, like they talk about. Never. Because my Martha was dependable. I was babbling, but it let me focus on something other than the big bug. My version of whistling past a graveyard, I guess. I started scooping up one of the piles and tossing stuff in the machine. Every time I tossed something in, I'd look up, and he was always there, twiddling, watching. She was a rock. I threw in pants. 35 years I worked, and every day I had a lunch. More pants. Every day, without fail. 2 shirts and a sock. Every day, clean clothes and a lunch and dinner on the table when I came home. More pants, a sock or underwear stuck in one of the legs, but I didn't care. And now I find out one of the things she had to deal with, hell, joked about dealing with in order to get all that done, was you. I glared at the centipede, breathing heavy. I was working, sure, but this was the most I'd talked about Martha since she died. Even though Brenda, Cece, hell, even the pastor who'd performed the service had offered to be someone to talk to. I wondered how they'd react, knowing I'd turned them down only to open up to a reject from the creature feature. I didn't think any of that at the time, though. I was busy being mad. And after all that, after living with me, and I'm not easy to live with, I know, and working in the house and taking care of the kids and me and all of us, and then having to deal with you on the way, and always being there for everyone. Always being there. Until now. I slammed the lid, the clothes and water in the drum making it sound like a muffled gong. It was loud. I was loud, shouting at the end, but that damned Laundrylegs just sat there like I wasn't anything to worry about. He looked kind of blurry. I was crying. I hadn't cried at the funeral, not even when they'd lowered her into the ground. The kids cried. Her friends cried. Hell, people I didn't even know cried, all standing around a big hole in the grass. I worried someone might slip, might fall into the hole if they were too teary-eyed to watch where they were going. I was worried they might sue. But I didn't shed a tear of my own. A month later, in front of this freak of nature, I felt stupid and shitty, but I couldn't stop. And now here I am, with you. She's gone, and we're still here. You're still here. Is that right? Is that fair? Bullshit. I leaned over the machine as it started shaking and humming and slapped a palm against the wall, trying to get a reaction out of the thing, finally sent it scurrying back to its hole. And dust billowed in a shallow cloud, making me cough and stinging my already weeping eyes. He didn't move. I stepped around the washer to reach higher on the wall, shouting and slapping again and again. No reaction. I was panting and still crying, not boo-hooing like some lady on daytime television, but the tears running down my face all the same. I felt sad and mad, and right then it didn't matter why. What mattered was there was this thing for me to yell at, this big special effect looking thing on the wall that was, as far as I could tell, ignoring me. My God, that pissed me off. I stepped back, chest heaving, palms stinging, but that damn tree branch of a bug just sat there, waving those feelers like he didn't even know I was there. Like I didn't matter. Something inside me decided I was going to show him who mattered. Decided that either he was going to run or I was going to kill him, just as simple as that. And, just as simple as that, I snatched up the big bottle of detergent from the little table beside the washer and flung it at him. It was heavier than I'd expected. I just poured out a capful, but pouring is different than throwing, and it was a big full jug. I threw as hard as I could, but the weight of the thing pulled me off balance, and my feet tangled in one of the waiting clothes piles, and I went down. I might have gotten hurt, sprawling onto the poured cement floor, but I managed to land on the other pile. Well, mostly. I did whack the bejesus out of my elbow. I was still busy being mad, though, and when I fell, I lost sight of Laundrylegs. The jug hit the wall. I heard it land on the lid of the washing machine with a clunk, a lot like when I'd slammed it, but I didn't get to see what happened. I scrambled to my feet. This was when I noticed the elbow, but the wall above the washer was empty. No sign of the big bug anywhere. I leaned between the machines again, searching up between the joists for a crack or a split the big bastard might have fit into. And then, with my face closer to the wall like that, something on it caught my eye. There was a splotch on the cinder block, so light it nearly matched the faded paint, a pulpy, lumpy mass about the size of a quarter. Looked a little like instant oatmeal. I might have missed it, even as close as I was, except for the leg. Right at the edge of the mass, like a twig stuck under a mammoth spitball, was a single, huge centipede leg. Holy shit, I whispered. I got him. As soon as I saw the leg and realized what the mush on the wall was, the anger just drained out of me, and I felt guilty. Sure, he'd been big and creepy as hell, but Martha'd never wanted me to kill a bug for her, just shoo him away. I'd gone and squashed the thing almost as soon as I'd found it, and it was one she knew, sort of. Martha wouldn't have approved. The big jug of sun lay on the floor. I picked it up and found an even bigger splotch of goo covering one bottom corner, a thatch of stock stuck in it like reeds growing out of mud. More legs. At least 2, maybe more, smashed and splintered, the lone whole one still attached to a flap in his hide. I looked at the amount of pulp on both the bottle and wall. I looked at the intact legs sticking out of both messes and thought about the size of the thing I'd watched watch me. Where the hell's the rest of him? Even adding together the stuff on the wall and the stuff on the bottle, there was no way it added up to a whole Laundrylegs. Not even half. I checked the floor behind the machines. It was shadowy, but the overhead bulbs reflected off the white paint and enamel, and I could see well enough. No sign of him. Oh, I felt a little guilty before, but now, not only had I gone and smashed this bug Martha had known and talked about, I'd done a crap job of it. I imagined the rest of the centipede crawling away to die, half crushed and in pain. If Martha was up there looking down on me like people said she was, well, she wasn't too happy with me right then. I cleaned off the bottle and looked at the goo splat above the washer. I'd have to get the stepladder from the garage to clean that mess. The machine still had 30 or 40 minutes before I needed to move the stuff over to the dryer, so I figured to bring the ladder down then and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I turned the lights off and came upstairs. When I brought the ladder down an hour later, there was no sign of anything on the wall. No leg, no goo, nothing. I even fished the paper towels out of the trash to check, the ones I'd used to clean the bottle, and they were clean. I looked everywhere. There should have been something. There was nothing. It's like Mom all over again. And that's the first 2 days of the diary. Ta-da!
Very nice. Thank you very much for reading that to us.
Thank you.
You guys need to catch the rest of this, and some of you are going to get it for free. We had a couple comments real quick while you were reading. Jenny says, Martha is always an important subject in my life. I don't want to imagine this in real life. Fair.
Okay.
And recently, Hey Pops, greetings from Brazil. Like your podcast? Like to have you here. And are you the voice from the History Channel?
Me? No. I don't even really sound like that.
And you did the Holiday Inn last night.
Those are expensive these days.
Yes.
Not worth it.
Hotels in general are expensive these days, especially when you have to live in them for months on end.
That was something else I was going to ask you. You mentioned some cons. Before we jump in and do the giveaways, do you have any cons that you go to on the regs or that you have coming up?
Oh, wow. Hold
People
on.
Can catch it? Pretty sure I caught a sight of a few of them.
I actually have to go to my website and look up my events because I don't remember the dates. We're doing an author reading. Okay, Wicked Sick, which is I belong to New England Horror Writers, which is a group of about 600 writers, editors, cover artists, publishers, anyone having to do with the horror writing genre. And every year to 18 months, they put out an anthology. And the most recent one just came out 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, came out very recently. It's called Wicked Sick. I have a story in there, and we're doing an author reading in Beverly at the beginning of July at Copper Dog Books. So if you're in the area, I don't see anyone in the North Shore, come on by. There'll be 4 or 5 of us there reading from our pieces. You can ask us questions. We'll shake hands, sign books, sign babies, sign body parts, whatever. NECON, which Northeast Writers Convention, which if you know about it, you go to it, and if you don't, okay. If you're going to be at NECON, I'll see you there. And that's in July, end of July. And then there's other stuff that's on down, but it's months away. My busiest time, is always October. So that's a ways away.
I wish you were closer because at the haunted attraction I help manage, we actually have a booth for artists outside. So like I get to sell copies of my book out there. Other artists come out and sell stuff. And of course, if anyone else had a book to sell, we'd let them out there too. It's like a constant con with people who only love horror that are coming because they go through the haunt, they exit the haunt through the gift shop where all the artist booths are set.
Yeah, that we have for Salem. It's called Haunted Happenings, and it used to be way back in the past. It was like Halloween week, and then it became second half of the month, and then it was October, and now it starts about 2 weeks into September, and it's getting wider and wider.
Our whole
and wider.
haunt season right there. We start towards the beginning of September all the way through the beginning of November.
I would love to be able to set something up at one of those events, at one of those things that they have running for the entire season. But day jobs suck, and my day job sucks. I do take every weekend off. I tend to work Saturdays. I do take every weekend off in October, and New England Horror Writers has a booth that they're running 2 weekends, the first weekend and the third weekend of October. So if you want to meet a whole bunch of horror writers from New England, and there are a bunch of us at that, we pack as many people as we can into that table because it is so busy. Well, yeah, we'll be there. You can, if you look up New England Horror Writers on Facebook, it's the easiest way to keep track of all of us because that's the actual busiest platform that most of us have. It's a really easy way to track us down.
You guys who are regulars and watching the show know that we have pulled pretty much everybody from New England so far. And you guys have a great community. Everybody knows each other, is great with each other. I've determined that if you are going to move to Providence in particular, you either have to have a resume that includes 5 different subjects of the arts that you were like totally fluent and like an expert in, or they just give you an inoculation when you come in that teaches you 4 new things to go on. Because it's like, oh, and there's a writer, author, there's an author, artist, musician, historian, dancer who happens to be for me.
Yeah,
you guys are all overeducated. It's fun though.
I'm not. I'm faking it until I make it. I haven't made it yet, which means I'm still faking it. And I know for your first episode you had Steve Van Samson on.
Yes.
Steve's a good friend of mine. I was there at his first convention, which was lots of fun. He didn't tell you this. He didn't tell you about him sucking up the bug, did he? Of course not. I was there for that. It was a great story.
Story. So tell us the Steve Van Samson story.
It probably doesn't make a very good story, but it was excellent to witness. I'm very talky right now. In person, I'm either talking way too much or I'm not talking at all. And Steve's the people person. He's very gregarious. He's very, hey, what we're going to do, and we're going to talk, and I'm going to talk to you, and I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to get you people together. And he's like that all the time. And seeing him in midstream suck up a bug and not be able to expel it at all, and just wind up, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to, and he just couldn't. He couldn't go on, but he was determined to go on, but he couldn't go on. And the people that he was trying to sell something to were just, watching him try not to die. And we're a bunch of we're nice people in general, but for something like this, we're not the most sympathetic crowd. We are basically just gonna step back, laugh, and watch you die.
That is something that we joke about cons where, well, not joke about, but every con, you have your comic cons here. There's always like the horror writers who are over in the corner.
Yes.
And then at horror cons, everybody's everywhere. Horror cons embrace everyone.
Yes.
Comic cons shove the horror people over to the part where just those people who want to see them are going to be hanging out at.
I've made the mistake of doing like local craft fairs and things, because it's a sale space, it's a table, it's you kind of try everything, and I have watched, so you're in a row and there's like someone who has made macrame cats and someone who has all kinds of mugs that they've made and someone who has homemade jewelry and then you and then this, and I've watched little old ladies walk along and you can tell when they're looking at my booth, my table, because they're kind of like, oh, this is not, oh look at that, oh it's oh look at this, and it's just silence as they go by, and then they start talking again about the stuff like I don't exist. They don't.
Right.
Yeah. It's a table with skulls and books and what the hell is that? And they just move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to be going to my first con this year, so I'm super excited because living in Nebraska, we don't. The cons that I have been to so far have been like, guess what? Three of your local gaming and comic book shops have gotten together and rented out a room so that instead of hanging out at each of them individually, you can hang out them with your other friends who go to the same place at the exact same time as you do, together at all three at once.
Yeah.
And that's what I get. But I'm going to go out. I'm going to be heading to the east, and I'm going to get to see Terrificon this late July. So if you happen to be going,
there are some big cons. Most of the conventions are over the weekends, and I tend to work the weekends.
Oh.
And I only have a limited amount of vacation time, and I tend to suck it all up in October, trying to get every single weekend in October off. And the first year that I was going to conventions and stuff, somehow I have a rotating day off. So like every 6th weekend I have off, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Great, I can go. And the first year that I spent trying to go to cons, my weekends magically lined up with a whole bunch of them.
Nice.
And the event coordinator for the NEHW, Scott Goudsword, was all kinds of happy because I'm a helper. He refers to me, I'm his minion. Whenever I do a convention, he's just like, we need this to happen, and I do it. And he was all excited about having a minion who could go to all these things. And then the following year, I was just like, yeah, no, can't, nope, can't, that doesn't line up with that. Sorry. But we did used to try to get to, oh crap. And like I mentioned Anthocon. Anthocon was a nice one. It only lasted for 3 years, but it was great because it was like I said, it was writers, and it was writing based, and 90% of it was horror writers, and it was kind of growing. But the organization that was running it, it kind of fell apart. And it wasn't their fault. They didn't have a falling out or anything like that. It's just that like one of them moved halfway across the country, one of them was in the service, and so he got pulled out of the country, and it just kind of went away.
So there's a market. There's a market there that somebody needs to tap into and provide this kind of con for people again.
We've been trying to get Scott to do that. He won't do it. I don't blame him. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I've looked at the stuff coming up, and I'm just like, oh my God, how do you organize that many people to, and with security and things these days, it just seems insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. Some of us trying to get out to Scares to Care. I've been wanting to get out to that since it started. And
a lot of friends go to that one.
Yeah, I haven't been able to make it. We are trying to get a group together to go. But tables sold out. Like, tables are for sale. They're gone. And so we're on the wait list to get one. And then we're waiting. We're on the wait list, and I'm socking money away so I can actually go. But
that's a huge
for next year
for everybody in the horror community. No matter what your art is in the horror world, like that's one that like literally everybody in the industry goes to, if you can get it at a table.
And the haunt community, horror community, everybody together, we are the nicest freaking people that you will ever meet.
Just straight up.
I know.
We will hug you and give you skulls and all sorts of things.
We look scary, but we're not. We're not really. Most of us are just big teddy bears, man. Like we look freaky, we do all this weird stuff, but like if your car broke down in the middle of the night, we're the people that would pull over the side of the road to actually help you.
We might be in costume.
We might be in costume or something else might be going on, but That's been my experience in the industries.
I'm going to do we're going to see how the new presentation works with the Wheel of Merch. And what we are going to do is we're going to do the first 3 spins are going to be for make sure I get everything set up. Okay, the first 3 spins are going to be for ebook copies, probably Kindle, unless you don't use a Kindle and need it off something else, then let me know when we talk to you afterwards. And the 4th spin is going to be for an autographed copy of Laundrylegs. So this is my first time trying this new setup. So let's
Wheel of morality, turn. Teach us the lesson that we should learn.
Yeah, right. This is I've been sitting here for forever trying to figure it out. I'm like, I don't have 2 screens. Like, oh, you can open up another window. Oh, yeah, that would be something I could do. I suppose that works. So let us try this. And ta-da! All right, everybody ready for the first spin? This will be for an ebook copy of Laundrylegs.
Hello, kiddos. It's time to spin the wheel of the merch. But remember, this time there's no cheating.
All right, our first winner will be, I'm not going to pronounce this right, probably Delphine. I will contact you after the show. On Facebook, we'll get an e-copy of Laundrylegs.
Nice.
And now,
congratulations.
Yes, good job. You're going to love it. You've already gotten to see part of it. So there you go. Yay, Shannon says hi. Okay, now to go back. Our next one, Jeremy Courtney, by the way, made these wonderful spin sounds for me. And we used to have this big problem with cheating happening because the wheel didn't do some of the things that it does now. So it's been updated, but there's still some cheaters in the comments because our brand insists on sticking itself there, whether we want it to or not. So, all right, next one.
You have cheated, you insignificant piece of human excrement. You now will be destroyed.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Wow.
That was the wrong one. That was actually if there was a cheater. Okay. So
Way to go, cheater.
So Jenny, you actually do win this one. You weren't a cheater. I just pushed the wrong button. but you got to hear what the cheating sounds like. Okay.
This is only a drill.
This is what it was supposed to sound
Test
like.
emergency cheat system.
Okay, so we have the third one. Okay, this is also for the ebook, and I'm going to use the actual right spin this time.
Get ready, pathetic humans. It is time to spin the wheel of merch. If you cheat, I will destroy your world with my giant laser beam.
Jeremy wins.
Hooray!
Of his own. So yay!
Yeah,
Congratulations.
you lent the voice also. That's epic. How is that not cheating, Jeremy? I'm joking.
And yes, it did get everybody's attention.
Yeah, it sure did.
Okay.
Oh, you had a sound low in the background? Haha.
And now for the epic spin for the autographed copy. Here we go.
For all the money.
Boys and girls, children of all ages. But what your personality proudly brings for you is Wheel of... No cheating.
No
okay, and we actually cheated that time. So.
Here is your cheater,
Spin again.
Okay. So do you guys want the Crypt Keeper, or do you want Marvin again?
Crypt Keeper.
Crypt Keeper? Okay.
Hello, kiddos. It's time to spin the wheel of merch. But remember, this time there's no cheating.
All right. And there we go. East Coast Hunters.
Woo.
Congratulations, you get the big one. I will get in touch with you. Jenny, I have your information. I know how to get a hold of pretty much everybody here except for Drotha. You will get a comment from me. I will send something out to you. And we will get all of that taken care of. Also, guys, up in the corner where I said before that you could see the PBDC little QR code thing, that will take you directly to our website. And if you are looking into picking up some books by Rob, go on there, go to the shop, and they'll have a recommendations by thing. We're the Owlite brand, and we will go ahead and you go there and you'll get a list of all the books of everybody who has been on the clutch that has something available on Amazon. Also, all of his other information is available either up above or down below, depending on what you're watching us on. And you can go to his website and get other information. But East Coast Hunters is building up quite a library, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and we've just crossed the 2-hour mark. So I'm going to let us get in. Get this done. And
thanks,
does
East
anybody
Coast.
else have any questions? Yes. And it'll be a numbered copy. So Raz and I, you guys know how to get a hold of us. We're really easy. We're in the comments, but follow us everywhere. We did just update some new stuff with the Owlite podcast. We have a YouTube channel now, as well as a Facebook channel. And let's keep going. Well, do you have a question? Do you have something to prompt us?
Also a t-shirt store, because we're doing t-shirts for Owlite. That's already up actually now.
Yeah, we did put up some Owlite merch that you can get as well.
There will be more.
Yeah, it's we just got the first couple of things started, but
and I want to point out that I love what I had you make. We actually have camp t-shirts. They look like old, like actual camp t-shirts with the Owlite brand on there for the campfire shows that we do. And we have a version on the back that says counselor and another one that says camper. So that was like, as soon as I can afford, I'm actually about to buy one of our counselor shirts because that just cracked me up so much.
Yeah, and I do hope to get you on. We'd mentioned the campfires to you before, and you were interested in coming on one of those, right?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna be able to have you. So I'm gonna give you the screen again, and let us know where you would like to have everybody reach out to you at. I did post I showed you the links that I had. If there's anything else you'd like to add, and how you like people to interact with you, as far as like in emails or chats or whatnot.
Anybody can get in touch with me through my webpage, which is just robsmales.com, SMALES. That's the easiest. There's a contact me page. It goes right to my main email. I'll wind up getting a hold of that. Or look at me up on Facebook. I am Rob Smales. It's weird. I am Rob Smales, the author. There is also a Rob Smales, the artist. It's spelled exactly the same, but it ain't me. It's I think he's in Germany. I'm not really sure.
I found him while researching you, actually. Yeah.
Yes, he just started Googling my name. You wind up if you just do Rob Smales, half the stuff that shows up is him. That only started happening 2 or 3 years ago. And at first I was kind of weirded out because it's like platforms that I either don't have or I have but don't really use. Yeah, it's odd, but he's not me. Really a wonderful guy. I just fine, but he's not me. But yeah, if you look me up on Facebook, is probably the only you'll find me on. You'll if you look, you'll see that I have like Twitter and Reddit, and you'll find my name listed. But I'm usually just on Facebook. I am not the most social media savvy person. I'm still trying to figure out the first platform that I found before I spread out to anything else. So.
Gotcha. Okay, and I am going to actually be going to Terrificon, which is at the
Terrific.
Yes, I can't remember what the name of the hotel is. It's like the Muskego. I should know this, but Muskegon something. It's a giant casino that's up there. It's in Connecticut. I'll be going there sometime. I'm going to be on the 27th, and I'll be staying for at least the days of the haunt and the days of the con, and maybe
Mohegan
Sun. Thank you.
Mohegan Sun in Uncasville, Connecticut.
Yes. I've looked it up enough. You'd think that I would know it by now, but it's I'm a casino goer, but we usually go to the Caesars brand ones just because we have points there, so we get freebies. It's like stay for nothing. Awesome. I hope to see you there.
Yeah, who wouldn't?
Visit, let me know. And if you have time off, swing by. We can go bug people together. It would be fun.
It's always fun.
Be awesome. All right. I'm going to get us out of here tonight. And thank you all so much for coming. I will get all of your merch out to you ASAP, or at least get a link from you so I can get it to you. And anybody else have anything tonight?
Nope.
Thank you all for coming.
Take care, everybody. Peace out. Steve Van Samson, Curtis M. Lawson, Paul Christian Glenn, Joshua Rex, Raz, Rob Smales,